Hey, this is Matt. Once again, we're about to another video, another paid request, this time for Gia. Thank you for that. And for those interested requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, commentaries, reviews, re-reviews, randomness, whatever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for an episode of the 2003 Ninja Turtles cartoon. This is a set someone made and I bought it since Nickel and Diamond, Nickelodeon, and them won't ever do an actual release of this. Probably my favorite cartoon. Because I grew up with the 80s Ninja Turtles cartoon, but this became my favorite. I remember when this debuted in 2003, and I think I still had a VCR at the time, and I taped it on a VHS tape, and because had to be somewhere else, and I rewatched it, I went, wow, this is more serious. It's still a kid's show, but it's more serious, and the action scenes have a little bit of anime flavor. And I didn't grow with anime, but I liked it was more action-driven show. I liked it seemed a little bit darker compared to the 80s cartoon. And like I said, the first two live-action films and this are my favorite incarnations of these characters. And yeah, Seth Rogen, I'm sure will eat my balls. But he wanted me to talk about an episode called Return to New York Part 3. Now what was interesting about the show is that a lot of times they would have a story and they would split it up to 3 parts, 4 parts, maybe 5 parts to fully tell their story. Now I'm not going to sit here and say it's the most in-depth dramatic story. It's still a kid's show, it's still an action kid's show, but I like that it would still take a little bit room to breathe and not try to rush things. Yes, some things are, but I like the idea in something like this. There's a little bit of breathing room by splitting it into 3 parts like this one. By this point in the show, Leonardo, way before, had been in a fight, thrown through a window. The other 3 turtles in April, and then Casey Jones got Leo out of there. April's shop was blown up. They trained on a farm. Leo got better. Because in the comic book, that's what happened to Leonardo. When they made the first live-action movie in 1990, they changed that to Raphael. But here they go back to Leonardo. So they're training. Leonardo's healing. They're going to go back to New York, fighting Shredder. And the first 2 parts, it was them getting into the hideout of Shredder, fighting the Foot Clan, other members of the Foot, dealing with Shredder clones, these 3 Shredder clones, dealing with these mystics that have these more supernatural powers. And then here you get this final battle between Baxter Stockman and Shredder. Well, final until the next time, of course. And pretty much this is wall-to-wall action. And I do remember liking this episode quite a bit. And I would say it is one of my favorite episodes of that season. Because it's Stockman. And that was the thing about Baxter Stockman. I like what they did. Is like throughout the show, he would lose more and more body parts. Just each time he failed Shredder, he lost an eye, or he's lost this, lost that. I mean, it got to the end. At one point, he was just a brain in a jar. And your mind kind of does the transition. It's like, that is pretty violent without showing violence. So, that's what I mean. At times, it pushed it a bit, which I appreciated. Kids can still enjoy it, but I can still enjoy it as well. Which I find funny. There's a guy complaining, you know Ninja Turtles is for kids, right? I'm like, have you read the original comic books? I'm guessing you haven't. You know, the one that brought them to the dance, so to speak? And I guess you never read the original comic books. You never watched the show. Yeah, it's a kid's show, but it's also a show that has an episode where Donatello is in the future, an alternate future, and his other 3 brothers get killed during it. Those dimension versions of his brothers. There's a bit where they're fighting this character, and one of them kicks, and it gets hung in the fucking chain, and you only see it by silhouette. There's an episode where Leonardo has a nightmare because of this creature thing, and there's an evil splinter, and he has to stab it, and you see the sword poking through the back, covered by the splinter's shirt or his robe, however you want to put it, and you see the sword like sticking up, but not going. You see, the cloth doing like this. To get the idea. But again, when people don't know what they're talking about, there you go. So yeah, the Turtles having to fight and deal with Stockman and Shredder in this one. So Bowser Stockman has his big suit. Says that every time they take him down, he comes back. He has backup plans. I like that a lot of times each of the Turtles get their moments to shine. Whether it be like Raphael kicking Stockman down, or Leo cutting Stockman's robot arm off, or Donnie getting the robot arm and blasting Stockman out. There's also this thing they established before in the show, the Sword of Tengu, which you need like a special glove, otherwise it'll burn the hell out of your hand. Or maybe any glove, not just a special glove. And like I said, it's just for 20 minutes, it just goes and goes and goes with a lot of action, and which makes sense because this is supposed to be a culmination of a season, so you want like a big spectacle, at least for your show, and what it builds up to. I like the bit with Raphael jumping and kicking a Foot Clan member off, and is in this flying cycle. He's being blasted up, he blasts some, he's jumping, kicking some other Foot members out of their cycles. He does like one or two times. And then Donatello's helping him out. My favorite bit is when Shredder's trying to get the sword and Raphael goes, Geronimo! He jumps off, it hits another cycle, and a Foot Clan flies off. And the collision, the debris falls, Shredder has to get out of the way, so it basically says Shredder can't get the sword. Just at that moment. I thought that was really... See, that's another reason I like the show. Raphael is actually a badass, and that's my favorite character. And he's actually a badass on this show. Unlike the 2012 cartoon, where he's afraid of horses, or he gets turned to a damn plant at one point, into a flower, or... What the hell else happened in that show? Oh, when they're dealing with monsters, he's the first and only to get turned to a vampire in like 5 minutes. Like, they just snipped the balls out of that character, in my opinion, on that show. I could name like 10 more instances where that happens. First season and a half, maybe 2, that show was alright. And then after that, just... What movie can we reference next? And how many times can we reference the 80s cartoon? That's what it seemed like it became. And then again, Raphael was a pussy. So, I much prefer this show. And don't get me started on the rise of the TMNT. Ugly designs, ugly animation, and that's getting an animated movie. Why? It was so good it lasted, what, 2 seasons it got canceled? But let's make a movie. Okay. Sure. But I like the Geronimo bit. I like the Turtles working together. Leo and Raph helping each other out. Them working together. Shredder's going to kill Raphael. Then Leonardo stops it. But then it's going to burn Leo's face. Then Raph helps to stop it. The Turtles work together to beat up Shredder a bit. I know Gia was asking, because on PayPal you could send a message. He's saying... Would Leo win without the Tengu sword against Shredder? Maybe. Because the way it ends is with a duel. And they jump at each other. and do a swipe. I didn't, and that's another cool thing about this show is that there are moments where it'll go like to widescreen for the more anime type of shots, and so there's some dynamic pieces of animation throughout the show. Like you tell, especially the first 4 seasons at least, there's a lot of effort put into making this not just a run-of-the-mill looking show, with the use of shadows and trying to have a little bit of mood in it, even for a kid's show. And especially the action bits, I think was fairly effective. And they run at each other, and Leo cuts, you think, cuts Shredder's head off. Because he lands, and you see Shredder in the background, and the helmet falls off, and then Shredder falls down. So if that was 2 regular swords, and they did that, Leo would have done the same thing. Now the only question is, would the sword have gone through the helmet, or was that only done because of the Tengu? I can understand that argument, but I mean, stuff like that's been done in the comics and stuff, and there's no magic Tengu sword, so I do think yes. Um, I can understand both sides. Just before, I'm like, no, I don't think he can. But as I'm watching, I'm like, you know what? Maybe he could. Because also at that point, he was more. Splinter had gotten hurt, and Splinter was wounded, and that gave him a bit more of the motivation. And then with his family backing him up, I think maybe he could have. And then at the very end, they leave Splinter. What the hell is that? Splinter is missing. That goes into other episodes, which will then lead to the next season. And then you see Shredder walking off. You know, how the hell? And then you find out later, which I know a lot of people were pissed off about that. I guess it didn't bother me because it was something different, but I did find it a bit interesting, at least for me. And you're able to get that cool moment, but at the same time, you can't kill Shredder off yet because again, this is only the first season, so it's like you gotta have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. And it's still a kids show until they make an R-rated movie or something to that effect. You're not going to see them, cut someone's head off or something. And yeah, this is a fun episode of a very fun, I would call underrated. People go, why do you call it underrated? It got a lot of seasons. It got, 4 seasons. I'm on other stuff. The reason I would call it underrated is because no one talks about this show anymore, which is a shame. It has no good release on home video. When it came out on DVD, it was like 2-3 episodes per disc. Like you buy one DVD, there's only like 3 episodes. Then they were finally doing season 1 part 1, season 1 part 2, season 2 part 1, and then they sold it to Nickelodeon, and that was stopped. Why Nickelodeon didn't go, well, wait a minute, people like this show, let's season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4. Here you go, here's the DVDs. Oh, here's Blu-rays. I mean, no. Maybe because Nickelodeon's like, well, we didn't make it, so we don't care. So, that's one of the many reasons why I hate Nickelodeon, Paramount, all pair of pricks, all that stuff. Even when there was that stupid documentary, what the hell, the definitive history. And I had talked with the people who were making that documentary in forums, even did interviewed them, and that documentary was such a bunch of horse shit because I don't understand people watching it and getting tits out of learning about the first movie. And you like that such a I get that. But the definitive history, then that should be like Crystal Lake Memories, Never Sleep Again, what I hear about this Robocop documentary, whenever the hell it comes out, then that's what it should be. Not this 90-minute or whatever horse shit where 80% of the history's missing, including no mention of the 2003 cartoon. The second film gets 30 seconds and someone goes, it sucks. And the third film, it's not as bad as part 2, but it sucks. I'm like, what? You think part 3 is better than part 2? And you're only giving these movies 30 seconds? What in the shit? Just, I could go on with that shitty documentary. It's like, yeah, you think it's good because you have nothing else. It's kind of like when Friday the 13th did that. What was that one? There was a Jason Voorhees one. I forgot what the hell it was called now. And I'm like, okay, you think it's good, but then when you get Crystal Lake Memories, you go, oh wow, well this is nothing compared to Crystal Lake Memories. Exactly. I forget what the hell it was called. Shows how much I remember that. But yeah, the show deserves more respect. It deserves more. It deserves a proper fucking release. This is not official, of course, but it deserves a proper fucking release. Come on now. But you can probably find some of these episodes on YouTube. So there you go. But yeah, very fun episode. Definitely one of my favorites of that season. And great that my favorite Raphael gets some badass moments like he does throughout the show. That's one critique. I wish he had better standalone episodes. That's one critique I have. His standalone episodes could be a lot better. But anyway, that's going off tangent. But yeah, Return to New York Part 3, still a fun one. So, with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later.